There's these are the oldest. This is immediately post-Civil War, and the Shako. That could have been a Civil War Shako, but the plate is slightly later, like early 1870s. These are probably Civil War period, because the Marines used, up through the Civil War, their Shako plate had an M for Marine. In the early 1870s, they started going to the EGA, the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. But these swords are even pre-Civil War, the Civil War. So that's the earliest pieces. And then these uniforms, that's from the 1870s all the way through the 1890s, and all three were worn by the same man. I know, I have the records on this guy, and they're all of them are identified, and he served in the early 1890s. But these are the styles of uniforms. Now, if you notice the headgear, you have a kepi, which looks like mid-19th century the French army had the kepis, and of course the U.S. did in the Civil War. Well, most armies adopted the style of a victorious nation. So when France was at its height in the 19th century, all the armies were using kepis. And then in 1870, during the Franco-Prussian War, the Germans defeated the French, and so suddenly all the armies started adopting the spike helmet. Looks like a Prussian spike helmet, and the U.S. did the same thing. So the Marines went from a kepi to a spike, and this goes down. You get into the Spanish-American War here. These are Spanish-American War uniforms, and also a couple of these guys served in the Philippines right afterwards. Started going to tropical uniforms as the nation expanded, and we were involved in actions in the Caribbean and the Pacific. There's a lot to read here. There's a bunch of souvenirs of one guy. He served in the Philippines and China. And that's the Marines during the Spanish-American War at Guantanamo Bay, which is that uniform right there. And in 1900, we were also involved in China during the Boxer Rebellion. Oh, okay. Thank you. Remember, the Marines were defending the legations in Beijing, and then later on were in occupation with a number of other countries in China for the first decade of the 20th century. And some of these white tunics were mainly worn in the Philippines. This is a linen tunic that was made in the Philippines. That's for a Marine corporal. So they had them made there. And almost all of my uniforms are identified. Like I mentioned, I have the paperwork and the history on these guys. Another Philippine, there's his field service tropical tunic, and then his dress uniform. Then we're getting into World War I here. And the Marines were heavily involved in World War I on the Western Front. One of their most famous battles is the Battle of Belleau Wood. And this whole trunk group, these uniforms, all of this belonged to one Marine who was decorated at Belleau Wood. And right after the war, we intervened in the Russian Civil War after the Bolshevik Revolution, and Marines went into Siberia. There's a winter clothing, and that's a Marine tunic with the Siberia emblem on the sleeve. And you actually see one of the posters there about the Army and the Marines in Siberia. Very few people know about that. that intervention. We were there about a year and a half. And then in the 1920s and 30s, the U.S. was involved in what's called the Banana Wars. And that was actions in the Caribbean and Central America when we intervened in countries that had insurrections. We were trying to uphold governments. We were also protecting U.S. business interests. down there, and the Marines were always at the forefront of that. And we intervened in half a dozen countries down there. And this is some of the uniforms or photographs of the Marines. There's a full, there's a complete uniform of one of the Marines. He was in, he's the one, and the Marines were there for about 12 years. Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Mexico, Panama. And then the Marines were back in China in the 20s and 30s because the Chinese Civil War was going on, the Japanese were invading, and so the Marines were there to protect, again, protect U.S. interests primarily in Shanghai and in the international quarter and on the Yangtze River, and they were called China Marines. These are various uniforms of the China Marines and some of their accoutrements and photographs. And we were there until 1940. Japan captured Shanghai. The Marines either evacuated or were captured, and they didn't come back again till after the war. And we went over it before we got involved in the Second World War. Marines actually went to Iceland, which had been occupied by the British, and we took over for the British so the British could go back and help fight in Europe. And so we had Marines in garrison in Iceland. Now, this is the most important piece in this collection, and this is World War II. This is the helmet and uniforms of one of the men who was involved in the flag raising on Iwo Jima. And he's not one that actually lifted the flag. He's this Marine right here, Albert Stone, and he was going to help them raise the flag, and they had enough people, so you see him in the film and all the pictures where he's standing there, he looks up at the flag and he looks around. What he was doing while they were raising the flag, he was keeping an eye out for snipers because they were being shot at while they were raising that flag. So he was guarding them, and this uniform was given to a friend of mine by Albert Stone many years ago, and that helmet is what you see him wearing right here, and the tunic was what he was wearing on Mount Suribachi. And then they said the Marines returned to China briefly after the Second World War. This is a uniform of one of them who was there, and they were called North China Marines, and they were there during the latter part of the Chinese Civil War to protect U.S. interests, and they were there in 1949 and left. And that's the end. That's as far as I go. I don't.
Decorated like they're in the Army. They are actually Navy Seabees, but they also have to defend what they build. So that's why you see them in full weapons. I have the weapon of the time, M16A2. Do you remember these?
Oh, I do.
And tapes. I have a blueprint of a naval base they built. And it's actually, if you look it up, it's in Canada, but they built bases everywhere, so that's not unusual.
Right. And then these bins?
They're just ammo boxes,
okay.
Storage bins to put my stuff in. It's easier to haul that way.
Right. So what era was this again?
80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Desert Storm.
Okay.
I do also the Bosnia and Herzegovina time frame, which is in the 80s.
Okay.
So that's what started all this. And I'm from the 80s, so there you go.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the World War II section of our display today, and this is basically what I could fit in one car this morning. The house is pretty much overflowing back home. No, I've got the Pacific Theater on this side. I have the European Theater on that side. I've got the Navy in the center with some local World War II history as well. here, since we are in Lake City, we have Naval Air Station Lake City with photographs, construction photographs of the Naval Air Station back during World War II. We also have a couple of newsletters. This is one of the finest service banners I've ever collected from World War II. It is probably from a church or a business or a fraternal organization, and every star is actually assigned to a specific person. As you can see, they had many members from this group that went off to war, and 4 did not come home. So we've got the Naval Aviator. We have the Navy gray uniform, which was the rarest of all the Navy colors. It wasn't snazzy enough, so it lost favor. Went away after the war. We've got combat infantry officer, U.S. Army in Europe, and we have an English tailored Army Air Force officer's uniform right there. The German flag is actually a large German flag that was sliced off a building. It's very long, it's folded up here, but it's signed by the individual soldiers who captured it. So the question is it really a Nazi artifact or is it an American artifact? It's both. There you go. Any questions that you may have?
Very interesting. I love that you brought the Lake City history.
Yes.
That's awesome.
One of my specialties is collecting Northeast Florida history from World War II in the middle of all the great World War II stuff. So I got a lot of stuff related to NAS Jax, Mayport, Cecil Field, Lake City.
Nice.
It's all fun.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
The whole display that you're looking at is a part of the Vietnam era display. What I've done is I put together what the VC, the Viet Cong, and also the People's Army of Vietnam, the northern enemy, the NVA, Ho Chi Minh's army, and what you're looking at are the various weaponry, uniforms of the Vietnam enemy. What you're looking at over here is an actual trail bike that they would have pushed down the Ho Chi Minh Trail full of all kinds of equipment. There'd be like 6,500 of these porters, and they would go 1,000 miles from Hanoi all the way to Saigon.
Wow.
All the weaponry that you see here is all part of the VC or the NVA. A lot of it is Russian, a lot of it is Japanese, a lot of it is China, even some French. What people don't realize is that Red China, Communist China, was an advisor to the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese army, along with the Russian advisor. And those are a Chinese uniform and a Russian uniform. This is the South Vietnamese. This right here is the ARVN troops, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. And we supported them. And they had their advisors. A Marine Corps advisor by the name of Captain Cole, and you had a captain by the name of Warner. Those two gentlemen were advisors to the ARVN troops. That is Mountain Yard. This is very rare that you see a mountain yard. Mountain Yard were mountain people. The Special Forces recruited them to be a part, to help them out because of their proximity to the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And some 40,000 actually served with our forces and fought with our forces, and they were Vietnamese. This here are America in 1960s, 1970s was very turmoil. A lot of anti-war sentiment, assassinations. A president actually resigned, President Nixon, and these were all protests. Along with the only movie that was ever produced during the war was the Green Berets. These uniforms here represent those who served in Vietnam. Army, Marine Corps, Navy, and Air Force. These are actual uniforms worn by the men who actually served in Vietnam. This is some of the equipment and some of the combat uniforms worn in Vietnam, along with the associated weapons. Shut it down a second. Come to me. Are you still filming?
Okay, here's a fun fact. Sorry. So, the way you can tell the difference between an Army nurse uniform and a flight nurse uniform is that her name, the Army uniform, is written, her name is written in white. And for the flight nurse uniform, her name is written in blue. So, I'm portraying a flight nurse from Vietnam. Her name is Kathleen Devana. She has quite a history in the military. She graduated from Bates College and received her medical degree from Mountain Hospital. And she served 2 years in leprosy colonies with the Peace Corps. And then she served in Vietnam.
Is that it?
Sorry, I'm not very good at being on camera.
Yeah, you are. You're fine.
All right. Portraying a soldier around 1969, 1970, U.S. Army infantry, Vietnam. This would have been the standard infantry kit, Vietnam soldier, or U.S. soldier in Vietnam. This would have been the pack they would have carried. Average soldier in Vietnam would have carried around 150 pounds worth of gear on a standard search and destroy mission. I carried the M16A1 rifle. M16A1 rifle was an improved version of the M16, which was developed around 1968. Wearing up from the bottom jungle boots. These are a layer pattern with a Panama sole jungle boot with the ripstop OG 107 poplin slant pocket uniform. Wearing the M56 harness with some M1967 gear, a mixture of nylon and canvas, with the M26A1 grenade and the M67 baseball grenade. I have a bandolier with M16 magazines for the rifle. Pouches would have also held M16 magazines. I am also holding a bandolier with M60 lengths for the M60, M18 smoke, a bayonet, flashlight, and 3 canteens for water. Then I would have had a towel and my dog tags. Dog tags also have a P38 can opener for rations. Towel was a very useful tool. Kept your brow from getting wet, and it was great for humid environments. Helmet. On the helmet, I've got bore cleaner for my rifle. I've got a stripper clip guide, because the bandoliers originally came with stripper clips full of ammunition, and you would need a guide to put your stripper clips into your magazine. I got toilet paper and matches on my helmet, all surrounded by a band and a helmet with a Mitchell pattern cover, which is reversible for desert or woodland environments, on the M1 pot helmet.
Thank you.
This is Kathleen Devana's actual flight crew checklist. It's quite amazing. It's very weird to find something like this. So these are her medicine calculations here and her time. So she looked at this to see everything, her protocols and everything she had to do. She typed this all up with a typewriter on her own.
Wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Lee Bledsoe, and I do the Korean War displays with the American Military Historical Society. I do the Korean War displays, and I have a good selection of items here. And what I like to do is show things that are not common. I mean, everybody knows what a helmet looks like. Everybody knows what a tent looks like. But what I like to do is put that in the background and show the things that are not common, that a lot of people don't know.
Okay.
And I'm happy to do that kind of show. I have medical supplies that people today can't believe that they're actually medical supplies. It's great fun. So enjoy your look. Have any questions, you feel free to ask.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then everybody else will just wear the regular
M1 helmet.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering why it was that like dark color.
Well, there are different. There's no color that's brown. That was
Okay. Right.
You should see him when he shows up with his display. The car is not much bigger than that table. It's just like a clown car. I'm telling you, he gets all of this in that car, and we all stand there. We still don't know how he does it. It's a secret. Yeah, he won't tell.
family secret. Did we learn anything
I had a question for you. Did I startle you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sneak up on you. I'll do it all the time. Do you know why they have the same gas mask with the filters on two different sides? Any ideas? Left-hand and right-hand shooters.
Yeah.
If you're a right-handed shooter, you certainly couldn't have that
You
right
don't
here.
have-
Yeah, you couldn't do that. Same thing with the left-hand shooter. And I pity the left-hand shooters, especially with the M1 helmets. I have a nice scar back here from firing a .45 caliber because all military weapons that we have in this country eject up and out on the right-hand side. And the left-handed shooter, that stuff is ejecting right up in front of him and smack him in the face, or in my case, it hit underneath the rim of my helmet and spun around like that and dropped down the back of my shirt. So I was dancing around with a .45 in my hand going, hey! It doesn't go over well in the range, you know?
I really admire what you did because you get all 10 lines.
Some right to the head.